Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. Day 4, number 234. I feel like we just did this, Frank.
I do too, man. I'm sitting here like in a fog.
A little bit of a fog, yeah. I usually get up around 5 every single morning. I go make a bagel. Variety is the spice of life, so I mix it up between the almond honey cream cheese, the strawberry cream cheese, and regular cream cheese.
Nice.
And then cup of Black Rifle coffee, even though they're not really involved with fishing anymore, still support that brand.
Oh yeah, me too, man. Me too.
And
I'm vibrating right now.
Yeah, and anyway, the alarm went off at 5. I didn't end up making it out of bed until like 6:30.
Perfect.
It takes me. Are you a guy that can hop out of bed and so like tournament mornings, Frank? Like, are you a guy like if you need to be at the ramp at 6 and you're 10 minutes from the ramp? So if you leave at 5:50, you get there at 6. Are you a guy who gets up at 5:30, spends 20 minutes and gets there? Or are you a guy who's up at 4, shuffles around, showers, really makes sure everything's dialed in, sits around a little, goes over the game plan in your head, and then gets there 20 minutes before you even planned on getting there?
I used to be that way when I was fishing the tournaments. I was exactly that way. And I also timed it to when I got to the ramp, I would get right in the water. And if I knew I was last flight, I wouldn't even get to the ramp until they were blasting people off. And then nobody would even be there. I would dump the boat in, guy would go park, come back. I'd get in line and we'd go. I was only late blasting off twice in my entire life, and both of them were because my non-boaters never showed up.
Oh, you can't control that. But see, right. I'm always a guy, I like to get in at least an hour before my takeoff time because I want to turn all my electronics on. I want to make sure the engine cranks. I want to make sure if I'm noticing something, I want to have time to power pull down and retie stuff. I want, if something is awry with the service crew that's there, I want to be able to say, you turn your, holy cow, my light doesn't work. Well, instead of now I'm half an hour late, I was a half an hour early. So now I've got a half hour to go hunt down a light, which I have a bad habit of breaking those things.
Yeah, I break a lot. I broke a lot of those things too. And, I used to be so efficient at it that I had it timed down to the minute. And I was very comfortable doing it. Most of the season, I never even got up with an alarm clock. I just woke up.
I do the same thing, but I'm an early riser on show mornings and tournament mornings. I wake up and I need like 45 minutes, catch up on what's going on, relax for a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, we did a 2.5 hour show last night. We did Frank after hours.
We had so much fun.
Frankie Jr. that jumped on, a couple of really good calls.
Mark jumped on.
Yeah, Mark Jeffries jumped on and talked about it. What was the name? What was his name? Who had been Jake?
Not Jake from State Farm.
No, but he had been tracking the moon phases based on his reaction from big fish around the moon phases, and then noticing a pattern here in Oklahoma, and then seeing if it was applicable like for the opens and the other Texas, tournaments based on big fish. And I think that's something I think we're all aware of, but man, like that was cool to listen. I was like, man, I need to, I probably need to pay more attention to that.
He did his homework. He did his homework. I put credence in the moon phase only that I make sure that I'm on my best spot. When I know the fish are supposed to be more active, I want to be on the best spot when that time frame occurs. But a lot of times in an event, you don't have that option. And so I always have a tendency to run to my best fish first. And then if that doesn't pan out, I'll go to them later. Mm-hmm. But I always run to my best fish first. I never give them up. I was
doing some deep cleaning I've got do you have a random closet that just has all sorts of papers that you need to keep, but you don't know where to put them? And it just like you end up with a couple boxes of stuff that you might need down the road, but you don't need right now. Anyway, I was cleaning out that closet and I came across like a, I guess for lack of a better term, a diary book. It was just, and I was like, what is this? And I opened it up and it was every tournament I'd fished in 2013, handwritten, the date that it was, what the conditions were, where I finished, how big the field was, how much I won, and then like a paragraph or two about key elements in the water.
Perfect.
That and of course I'd never looked at it after 2013, but it was weird going back through because like you fish so many, you totally forget about it. But it was wild to see.
Yeah, dude. I was doing the same thing. I found 5 fishing journals that I kept a log of every single fish I caught, every condition, what the fish was caught on, what the wind was doing, water color, water temperature, the whole 9 yards. I found 5 years of that.
Really? Do you have it right there?
No, it's downstairs. Every single bass. There were times when Troy and I were out fishing, and I found these journals when Troy and I would do them. Dude, we had one day where we caught a bass like every 3 minutes. It was like, it was like 801 Frank, 2 pound, 1 ounce, blah, blah, blah. 806 Troy bass, 808 Frank bass. And it was, dude, I was like, holy shit, we caught. So I started counting. I'm like, oh my God, we caught like 130.
Now, would you at the end of the day, like write a little bit of a recap about kind of, do you think there's any way you could put your hands on those and we could do a show where maybe you go through some of the more memorable days on that? I would love to hear about that from back in the day.
Yeah. So Troy and I used to do it all the time because Troy and I used to fish like madmen, and we fished a bunch of team tournament trails together and independent trails, together, but not in the same boat. And we were doing it so often that, remember those little hand recorders? They were called dictaphones.
Yeah, I used them on the Elite Series to do all the top 10s, to where, like all the old school guys would have the notes and scribble it. And I would just be like, so Kevin, tell me about the crankbait setup. And then you'd be like, throwing a lose 7.6 medium heavy 12-pound test, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And so we just carried those around and just recorded everything. And then at the end of the day, we would sit down, crack open a couple of beers, and we would write everything down. And in journals. Mm-hmm. And then I had places, I hope they're in these journals that I found. I had places where I actually cross-triangulated stuff and drew the little picture in the notebook.
Oh yeah, we need Lincoln on here already is calling it the Scalogs. Beautiful. I'm very excited for this show.
Yeah, I am too. In fact, yes, we're doing it. We're 100 Frank files. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, there's a bunch of guys you say that carry a digital waterproof. You can keep a log or fur back, but he can take it out and listen to it. I think what I've found also over the years is if you write it down, or if you think about it, or especially if you write it down, it somewhere, like, people are like, well, how do you remember all these stats and stuff like that? Like, I'm not great on stats from like 2019 until now. I am really good on stats from 2007 to 2018 on every single professional tournament, because I wrote about every single one. I was at every single one. I took notes on every single one, and then I published every single one, every top 10 FLW and bass that there was. Yeah. So, I could go back and remember all that, but it's because I wrote it down.
100%. So like Lake Norman got a lot of the journal logs because I used to go there all the time because I love the place. Mm-hmm. So new show, 100%. So it got to the point where I could launch the boat, see the wind direction, and know exactly where I needed to go. Mm-hmm. And look at the watercolor and knew exactly what colors I needed to put on. Mm-hmm. That's how good it got. And so go ahead.
Well, I was just to say, like, what you're doing, like, with like I was thinking, so what you were writing down and trying to determine, you could actually know exactly, like with the Deep Dive app.
Oh God, yeah.
Because you can pull it up and it'll show you what the watercolor was, the temp, what the wind direction, the wind speed was, what the flow was at the same amount of time, and all that stuff. So you have it all that stuff that you would have to pull and weren't sure if it was 100% right or not. Now with the Deep Dive app, you literally know all those things. Yes. That then you can record.
Absolutely. It like with that. So after you do your journal, and I'm calling it a journal, but basically what it is, it's a log. Mm-hmm. And you're logging everything you do and everything you encounter. You'll have to dumb it down. You don't have time on the boat to write down, a small novel. So you'll dumb it down, wind northwest at 5 to 10, water temperature 68 degrees, time of year, April or whatever. And you do that, and then you go, and then what I would do is, because I did a lot of structure fishing, and so what I would do is go 10 to 12 feet was the range for that period. And then as I would go through the journals, I would notice that all of a sudden I'm going, ooh man, that June area I got to be in 10 to 12, but by July I got to be in 12 to 20. And so then I could just start eliminating water columns predicated on temperature, water temperature, time of year, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really helpful in the beginning. It was really, really helpful in the beginning. Now and the problem is, Matt, like you said earlier, we got GPSs now. We could drop waypoints. We have mapping units. We don't have to carry a paper map. We don't have to write anything on the paper map. You know what I mean? I wrote everything. I had notes all over my maps.
Yeah.
And so I would have 5, 6, 7 maps of every lake, because I would try to do each map for a time of year or when I was there. For the event, it got cumbersome, man.
And I think you can do it as detailed as you want, as OCD as you want, and as basic as you want. Because like we have some lakes here that it seems like every year they pop off, and it's always within a month or two. And if you're one of the first guys to figure it out, you absolutely blast them. But every year you're like, when was it that I was on the water? And you'd have to scroll back through in pictures. But if you just have it, even if it's just date, general conditions, water temperature, blah, 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 then you can leaf through. And if it's a week earlier, if it's a couple weeks later, you can get on the front end of that bite instead of getting the call from your buddy that's like, I was one of 2 boats on the lake and I had a 30 rack.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
You're like, I could have been, you're at home watching reruns of The Traders instead of out there catching a 30-pound bag.
Yeah, dude, swear to God. I mean, we froze in December. The first week of December, we were locked in here. We had about sometime in January, we had a small window of a little trend of warmth. And we got rain. And then I'm like, God, I wonder if the lakes opened up. And I'm like, no way. We had like 6 inches of ice. There's no way they opened up. And then I forget what happened. I had to go somewhere. I forget where the hell I went. But at any rate,
should have written it down in your journal. Frank.
Yeah, no kidding. But at any way, I talked to a buddy of mine. He goes, dude, the lakes were open for 2 days. I'm like, are you kidding me? And because I would have gone. You know what I mean? I would have been out in a minute, and I missed it. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
Let's get to the first thing. I know we teased it last night's show. You were able to get your hands on the March Frank Scalish Signature Series drop. Are we approaching the end of the Signature Series drops for the season, Frank? How many more do we have in the can?
Oh gosh.
How many more months are we? Do you have any idea? We got to be over halfway through.
Look, hold on.
Okay. But this one will drop the next Thursday. Am I speaking correctly here? The 5th, the morning of the 5th.
All right, so here we go.
And you're doing a good job, because I think we potentially are going back-to-back topwaters with half of the country still frozen to be selling topwaters. It's pretty strong, Frank. So that's a pat on the back for yourself there.
Yeah, thanks. So here's what we're doing. We're going till September on this.
Okay.
And so the next,
we're halfway through now.
Yeah. So what I did was I pulled it up. I actually pulled it up.
I'm very curious to see how many guys. I know that the last year, because we had a break before, and then how many guys have complete sets this year. I know I'm missing a couple, but I've got most of them right here. I think guys are all right. Let's hit it up, because we're going back to probably my favorite hard bait color, which I think is still underrated, but has caught on a lot over the last 5 years.
Yeah. So the color that I'm doing is called Purple Heart, and it is going to be in a Super Zara Spook. Now I painted this one on a Super Spook Junior, but it's going to be on a Super Zara Spook. It's called Purple Heart.
That's like a straight gizzard shad impression, isn't it?
Yeah, dude, it is.
Because you've got the gizzard shad, and a lot of those gizzard shad are that bluish purple on their backs, and then they have a really, really kind of defined cream belly on it.
Yeah, this color here is it's semi-translucent, which is nice. I wanted the funky eye spot, false eye spot on it. I didn't want just a round dot.
Any reasoning, or is that purely aesthetics?
A lot of it's aesthetics, but thanks for that one. But I could say cinnamon. So a lot of it's aesthetics, but sometimes they have deformed false eye spots, and I kind of like that. And so that's what I did. I went with it.
So Pete points out the obvious. Fish can't see the back, though.
No.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, I feel like on a spook like that, though, they can.
Yeah, they can. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you work the spook and you're walking the dog, it's rolling when you walk the dog. And so what they're getting is they're getting that shoulder color as it rolls over. The fact that the bait is semi-transparent, which it really is. Let me see. Can I put something behind it so you could see it? Let's see.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah, 100%.
You see what I mean?
Dang it. Now I just did it.
Yeah, so anyhow, so what happens is you'll get the shoulder colors that come through on the transparent side, and that's how this thing was designed. But it's really I like it.
This next Thursday, sneak peek, first look at the next slide, and then obviously your signature will be on that one as well. That's just one that you just painted at home.
Yeah, this is. You see, I got my little card when I did it. I did it a while ago.
Yeah. Oh, we talked about it. It's like over a year by the time you get that stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We go from top waters to literally the bottom, and we have talked ad nauseum, and that's the biggest thing. These koikis, these crazy creature baits, and we had a really good reception couple weeks ago for the big spinnerbait show.
Oh, dude. I got guys are throttling them. This one dude sent me a DM. He caught his PB on it.
Really?
Slow rolling a big
Colorado or Willow?
Willow. Slow rolling a giant willow. Got his PB. He was rolling it through timber.
Night because of the show.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so, it was fabulous.
Anyway, we were like I said, I was picking up overeager raccoon, the remnants of a raccoon that got into the trash can. And I thought, we've done a ton of jigs, we've done swim jigs, we've done flipping jigs, and we've probably covered this at some point. But in all of this crazy stuff that's still going on, if you look at the top 10s, you look at the cold water, you watch the live, there's always a couple guys, even on Rayburn, like Fisher and I was throwing it for a while. You saw always guys early in the year that are dragging jigs, and they just announced that the Bassmaster Classic in 2027 would be on Hartwell. Obviously, that big mop that Alton Jones in 2008, I believe, won on Hartwell, dragging a big mop football style jig down the middle of a gut in cold water. And then I was trying to determine which jigs to put in the thumbnail for the show, and got on LureNet and realized there are about 75 different types of jigs from 5 companies on LureNet. So the floor is yours. Let's talk.
Yeah, and
early spring jigs.
And interrupt me anytime.
Okay.
So first of all, I keep my jig fishing really simplistic. All right. I have to tell you that I throw a couple of Booyah jigs and a War Eagle jig, and I make my own jigs. So most of what I throw are my own jigs, but there's a time and a place, and I have a time and a place. So I do definitely throw some Booyah stuff and some War Eagle stuff. So what I want to do first on is I want to touch on the styles of jigs, because there's tons of them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got ball-headed jigs and you got football jigs. And the reason I put those two together is because, in my opinion, those are structure jigs. A ball-headed jig you can fish on the rocks real easy, doesn't hang up so much. Ball-headed jigs are problematic in grass because the grass gets around the ball head. So primarily I'm fishing a ball-headed jig and a football jig on hard cover.
Which is why the ball-headed jig is so big in the Ozarks. No grass.
Correct. 100%. Oh God. Okay. I need a new, I can't keep saying 100%. So then what you got is what I call your flipping style head. Could be your jujitsu jig style head, an arky style head, something that's a traditional flipping style head, which works in grass, wood, and rock. Obviously, it works a little bit better in wood and rock, but it still works in grass. Then you have your pointed nose jigs, which is absolutely fantastic for vegetation. And then you have your micro jigs. Now, micro jigs, there's a huge category of micro jigs. So when I say micro jigs, I'm not talking about anything Ned related. I'm talking about legitimate miniature jigs, like football jigs or flipping jigs
that can be heavy. You can have a micro jig that weighs a half ounce.
100%. Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to get away from saying 100%, but here's what I want to show you. So these two jigs are my pointy nose jigs that I throw.
Okay.
This is the Booyah bankroll jig. You see, I cut it off of a rod. There's line on it. This is a bankroll jig. All right. Look at the head style on that.
Yeah.
Originally, and here's the thing about this jig that I like. It's a stand-up.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the hand-tied Carolina mop-style jigs have a head very similar to that bankroll.
Yeah, it has to stand up.
Yes.
It has to stand up. So anyhow, so this jig was originally designed for flipping wood. All right. I get the concept on it. When I bought them, I had no intention on throwing this in wood. I picked it up because there's some grass lakes that I fish that I needed it to be able to shake a half-ounce jig through deep grass. So I picked this up, and it turns out it's sick perfect. It comes through grass so good and doesn't hang up that it became a mainstay for me. And the other one that I use is an old school Booyah jig, Booyah flipping jig. Same thing. They call it a flipping jig, but look at the shape of it.
Yep.
And you see, I wrote the half ounce on
Definitely
the head.
Triangular.
Yeah, I wrote the half ounce on the bottom of the head.
Yeah,
so
you can tell that your kids are grown and out of the house when you have time to write the weight of your jig on each head.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is my other grass jig. And these are my mainstays. Okay. And so I'm just going through shapes and stuff. So football jigs are obvious. Everybody knows what a football jig is. I throw two football jigs, and I'm being honest. I throw Jewels and I throw War Eagles. The War Eagle, here's the reason. The War Eagle football jig, this is it right here.
It's an interesting shape. It's got a little bit, it's not a true football.
Right, but this is why I throw this. Because this thing comes through the wood. A true football jig has a tendency to roll over in the wood and get snagged up a lot.
And we're talking about this right here.
Yes.
To where I don't even know, how would you describe that point? A little bit triangular aside from the football head?
Yeah, it's almost like got like a buffer zone on it to help it come through the wood. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I throw this. Now this is a half ounce, and they make a 3/4 ounce. Mm-hmm. But this is why I throw that. Now my Jewel football heads.
Holy cow! Those pro football heads are only $3. I didn't know. Those are only $3.49.
Yeah, exactly.
On LureNet, and then if you use capital BTL25, you get an additional 15% off at checkout. So you're $3 a jig in a day and age when the majority of the jigs are $6-7 a piece.
Yeah, exactly. So here, I want to show you the difference because I love both of these football jigs. And so here's what I got. Oops, where's my glasses? It's too dark. It's backlit here. I can't see in there. Oh, football, duh. It's right here. And I'll show you this box here in a minute.
Okay.
So this is my this is my jewel. All right. So you see, let's do the comparison right now.
Yep. The jewel has a flat spot on the head, I believe.
Right, it does. So the jewel will knock and roll, knock and roll. And here's what happens with the jewel. When I'm fishing it in the wood, you have to be so light on the rod tip, because you have to feel the minute it touches the wood, and you got to shake it to come over it. You can get it through the wood, but it snags a lot. And so these are my go-to football jigs, because I know if I'm fishing, like you talked about a place you found at Rayburn that had stumps all over this long tapering point. So if I was going to drag a football jig down that, the War Eagle gets the nod. If I'm fishing a shoal, rock bar, or a
gravel, pea gravel, skull rock, something like that,
then I'm going jewel all the way.
Okay.
And that's just all I'm doing right now is I'm just breaking down jig styles.
Yep.
And so that's how I do it. And then here, like I told you, my jigs are real easy, right? So here, I'm going to show you, this is my actual jig box that's in the boat with me.
Sweet.
And that's it.
Very easy. I see 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, half ounce. There you go.
Yeah. And so there it is. And then I make my own jig that I throw a ton. It's on just a regular bass jig head.
Yep.
Bass flipping jig head. But I like it because I make odd sizes. I make a 5/16. I stay in the off sizes with it. The traditional sizes are fine, but here's what I found. I used to throw a lot of 1/4 ounce jigs, especially in the spring. The 1/4 ounce jig to me became non-existent, because the minute you added the trailer on, the minute you go to big line, that 1/4 becomes a 1/16 on fall rate. And then you lose feel, you lose accuracy, you lose everything. So what I decided was a long time ago that the 5/16 is my new 1/4.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to live on it. I'm going to stick with the 5/16, and then I go heavier from there. And here's the thing. So we're talking jigs. Let's dump trailers for 1 second, because trailers are nerve-wracking. You have a million soft plastic body styles that you can use as a jig trailer. They all work. They just do. For cold water, what I'm finding out is you either want the movement or you don't. And only the bass are going to tell you that. So what I try to do in really cold water is keep whatever bait I'm throwing, keep it tight movement, like the Yum Spine Craw or a Zoom Speed Craw. The claws are super tight vibrating.
Okay, so you're not talking about big, wide, woo, 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 woo. You're talking about
tight, right?
So just like when we did the swim bait show and you wanted a swim bait that had a nice, tight roll, quick wobble to it, you're wanting the same thing with that jig trailer. If you want any sort of action on it, you're keeping it streamlined and you're keeping it very tight action.
Correct. So with that in mind, if that's too much, then I go to the beaver style bait. This is a Yum Woolly Bug beaver style bait, and then of course the Reaction Innovations beaver too. I mean, they're beaver style. That's when I want no action, and then what I do is I trim it down. I trim the big one down to fit, or if I'm throwing micro, I go to the little ones. See, look at the difference in size of these dudes.
Yep.
I mean, there's a big difference there.
And that's going to add a lot of bulk, but not a lot of
movement.
Flapping.
Right. And so then there's a bait that I don't even know if they make it, but you could look it up. See if Yum makes a woolly hog cross still.
Sometimes I amaze myself with how good I am.
You are okay. So this is one of my all-time favorite cold water trailers right here. I don't know what it is about it, but it has something that these bass really like in cold water.
And it seems like it's very jig friendly too, as far as fitting nicely on the hook.
Oh, it does. I mean, here, look, go back to me. So you see, it's got a flat spot on it.
Yep.
I usually try to rig it so the flat spot is facing down on the jig, so
Yep.
I can keep all that streamlined on the belly, but I get the bulk of the back of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
I trim it down. When I put this thing on a jig, I'm usually doing my little version right here. This little here, I'll just do it right now. So this is my little 5/16,
Mm-hmm.
and so what I do is I'll put it up there, and
You
then
gotta go a little higher.
I'm going to do it. So what I do is I'll put it up and I'll measure how much do I want hanging off the back of the jig. And what I usually do for this little jig here is I go 3 bars down from the head.
In real life, Frank would be biting that off and then
Yeah.
chewing all the salt out of it.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I go 3 bites down from the head, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all the tentacles down, flat side down, like so. We're going to go up to the roll in the jig right about there, pop
Yep.
it through, and jam it on there. And that's the jig right there.
That is very nice looking.
Yeah, it's now this jig's missing tentacles too because I've been fishing the crap out of it. But that's the jig right there. And so what it does is it gives you a super nice slow fall,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the cold water. But at 5/16 and 17-pound line, I'm not losing my bottom contact with it. So if I'm fishing it in brush, I can walk it up over the limbs.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about this, and I think this is why this trailer, see, look at that trailer. See how it just folds?
Yeah.
I think the nice thing about this is that when I walk it up over a limb and it rolls over the limb, it just rolls over the limb.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's why it works so good.
So like I have thrown a jig in cold water with a beaver on it before. But like when you bite down a beaver or a woolly bug or anything like that, you have like it a lot of times it just seems too wide for the jig of me. And I don't know if that affects the bite at all, but this solves that problem because it doesn't seem like you've got the jig and then boom, a square piece of plastic that then comes down to the trailer. This is kind of the best of both. I remember that like Mark has a big row of those in his garage hanging up like that. And I don't know why I don't have those in my box. That is like one of the best forgotten jig trailers. I mean, at least in my, wasn't on my radar, but like, I mean, looking at it right now, like, especially for this time of the year for the cold, it has every single element in it that you want for 40 to 55 degree water.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't like they're in my trailer box, these things all the time. Now I'll be honest with you. I've thrown them in warm water and caught fish on them, but cold water, fall, winter, spring, that's the trailer I'm throwing on it. I don't know what it is about it. I've used tons of them. I use all kinds of, I use zoom trailers. I use reaction trailers. I use all these things. And for whatever the reason, I've got my trailers limited down to a handful because I catch fish on them everywhere I go and they work. Now we're going to talk about some movement. The craw chunk is, everybody knows what the chunk is. Legs move a little wild. They flap a little bit. The Christie craw is a great jig trailer, but you're talking wild. This thing's going to move a lot of water. It's going to be, really move a lot of water. Now, if you're fishing muddy water conditions, that's important to move the kind of water you can move. But sometimes in those cold, muddy conditions, they still don't want that movement. So you bulk a jig up. that's when you put a full size trailer on it.
Mm-hmm.
You want bulk. You want to create mass, so then when that bait goes down in the water, that fish can feel it with their lateral line moving down. A lot of guys love heavy jigs, half ounce, 5/8, 3/4. A lot of guys love them. They're easy to pitch. They're easy to flip. You're accurate as all get out. You could skip them a mile. The problem is that when it comes to, unless you're flipping and have to get into heavy cover, you want the lightest jig you can get away with and not lose your bottom contact, your feel. You have to pay attention to the fall rate. There are times when you're flipping wood, especially wood, where as you pitch in and the jig starts to fall, you get a bite. So that fish was suspending underneath the wood. And as the jig floated past him, he came out and got it. So if you're using a heavy jig and it goes, whoop, a lot of times it's beyond the fish. It goes right past them. And so you could miss the bite. If the fish doesn't run it down, you could miss the bite. So you have to pay attention to where the fish hits the jig. Now, in the springtime, a lot of things like when the bass are getting to the bank already and you're flipping boat docks, shallow brush piles, whatever, I'm kind of on the 5/16. Because I'm not fishing super deep. I'm fishing, 2 feet to 8 feet deep, which isn't super deep. I don't lose any contact with it. I could skip it well. I could have super quiet entries in the water with it because it's so light. I can have real soft, quiet entries with it. So if the fish is shallow and you throw something over its head, you don't spook it. And so that's kind of what I do. I feather the jigs a lot in cold water. When I'm fishing structure, I want the jig on the structure. I want to feel that jig on the structure.
On the structure, when in doubt, always bump up to a heavier size.
That's my theory. So I'll start out with a half and go up to a 9/16 on the structure jigs. I have ball head jigs that are 5/16, and I have ball jigs that are a little bit heavier than that, under a half. So that's kind of the range I'm in. Now, with the football jigs, I really have a tendency to go with trailers that move a lot of water.
When did they come out with that?
This is discontinued. It's bad JAMA.
That thing is awesome. That's a twin tail grub that harkens back 80s Ozark vibes, but has a thick beaver trailer on it that adds bulk and fall rate to the bait.
Oh, this was one of my all-time favorite football trailers. But anyway, I wanted to show it to you because it's kind of a twin tail style. The Christie Craws also goes on the football jig because it moves really well. The Craw Chunk, I consider this more of a finesse football trailer.
Yeah.
The Craw Chunk. So I'm only using this as a football jig trailer when the bass are super, super finicky, because I want that football jig. When you're dragging the football jig, I want the legs to do all the damage. I want those legs going mental. And so that's kind of my jig choices.
Okay, so you haven't mentioned this, and this is probably my favorite Yum trailer. Also, I'll say it, one of my favorite bed fishing baits, just because of how the plastic is with it. But you have not mentioned the Craw Poppy.
Yes. Okay. So the Craw Pappy, to me, I have them. I fish them on a lot of my micro jigs because I can cut them down and I can just take the top part of the carapace. I didn't bring them up here, and that's just my negligence.
Okay. No. I was just curious because, I mean, you had mentioned them, and I was like, okay, well, this is the one that I have the most confidence in.
Yeah.
As a trailer on it.
Yeah, agreed. So the Craw Pappy does a couple things. It gives you a longer body. So if you want to extend the length of your jig, you can not chop it down. Where if you're looking at a chunk, which, to be honest with you, the chunk legs, chunk claws, and the Craw Pappy claws, they move the same way in the water.
Yeah.
They do. They move the same way in the water. But if you notice the difference on the Crop Happy, you got a body length to it.
Yep.
So you have the ability to extend your jig. With these, you don't. If I wanted to make a bigger jig, I have to go to the next size up in these.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be too bulky at that point. And then I'd have to go heavier on the jig to get the same fall rate. So the Crop Happy gets the job for that. Another trailer that I didn't mention is the Yum Money Craw, but that's a summertime jig trailer for me. Like I throw that as a jig trailer all the time, especially in grass lakes. So there's a lot of trailers I didn't touch on. Like I said, there's tons of
trailers. All right. So one of the things you haven't got to that we have to is this custom stuff, the heavy micro stuff. Like, did you bring that?
Oh yeah, shoot.
I feel like I was really interested in that. I know you've shown this before.
Yeah. So this is my micro jig box.
Micro in I guess profile and size, not in weight.
Not in weights. The smallest one I have is 3/8 of an ounce. And so what I did was because I'm a tinkerer, I took the Great Lakes Finesse football jig.
That does not come with a skirt. That it comes in a 2-pack that you get on Great Lakes Finesse, and it just comes with 2
football
jig. Whatever painted color you want football jig.
Right. So what I did
on it.
Right. So what I did, I don't have any bear because I tied them all. But so what I did,
pull it up.
Here, this will work. So what I did, you guys are gonna laugh at me because I'm a nut.
This is what it looks like when it comes.
Yeah, perfect. That's it exactly. So here's what I did. I'm not showing you the front of this on purpose. So I tied my own skirts on it. All right. And these are hand tied skirts. I tried to do the rubber collar, but they're too micro-y, and I don't put a lot of fibers in. I'm not going to tell you how many I use, but I only use a certain amount. then what I did was I made a jig and fixture so I could drill into the head, and then I drilled a small hole so I could put a weed guard in it. And so I have a weed guard in it. And what I did was I did it so I could count the fibers so I didn't have too heavy of a weed guard. Because too heavy of a weed guard with a small hook, you won't be able to get the fish hooked up good enough.
That is, I will say, I'm not sure is that a Gamma? Yeah, that's a Gamakatsu
yes.
604 in there.
Yes.
You look at that hook wrong and it will be buried in you.
Oh yeah, it's there. It hooks them. And so anyway, so this is what I did. So I made all these.
Hold up a couple of those. Those are a thing of beauty.
All right. I don't want to give up too many tricks, but okay.
Your whole show, we've done 234 shows of you giving up tricks, Frank.
I know, but you know the drill.
I hear you. Yep.
But yeah. Okay. So these literally I made those.
Ooh, I like that green pumpkin with the black and blue skirt on it. That's a sexy little combination.
Yeah, it is. I have another trick that I better not divulge.
Oh no. You know what people are thinking now because you're not divulging secrets? They're thinking this might be, especially after last night's show and Frank's performance in the Open, might be a little breadcrumb trail that you might be fishing some big tourneys in the near future.
I don't think so, but maybe. Who knows? We can't rule things out. Why isn't this closing now? I disrupted my jigs.
So weight-wise on those, primarily 3/8 because those come in 8, 3/16, quarter, and 3/8. A 3/8 with a 2-aught hook, so you're going 3/8.
Yeah, I'm lean. I lean heavy on the 3/8 because I could fish it on a 7.5 foot baitcaster or a 7.5 foot spinning rod, depending. If I'm structure fishing for smallmouth, I'm leaning on the spinning rod a lot. If I'm largemouth fishing with it inland, I'm throwing it on the baitcaster a lot.
So the trailer on that, obviously that jig is designed to perfectly fit the 1.7 inch micro snack craw.
Yeah, no,
in the Great Lakes, but you're sticking with the traditional trailers that we just talked about, cutting it down and fitting it on that small.
Correct. And correct. That's exactly what I do. I use the spine craw a lot. The Zoom speed craw works really well on it, but I like how the spine craw is more narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so it keeps that profile super compact. So when I put the spine craw on, I'm literally cutting it down to there.
Yeah, it's just that. Hear me out on this, Frank.
Go for it.
I feel like that little compact jig, when you want to combine a little bit of action, maybe a little bit of glide on it, I feel like that could be an interesting option.
Yeah, that could
the
be
Hellgramite.
Yeah, that could be twisted good.
Am I off base here? I've never done it. I've never even held one of these Hellgramites in my hands. I don't know if it would match, but just from what I saw, the 3/8 football head with the did I
Yeah, you got something going there, man.
The 2.4 juicy Hellgramite on the back, just over the last 35 minutes, this kind of fits all of what we're looking for as a great all around.
Yes, and then you could go to the Yum Hellgramite too, which is a little more bulky. Also,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You could have said that
up. No, this show is about giving it up, but there's some things you gotta maintain.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a business. That's all I have to say. It's a business. You made a business decision.
Yeah, you got to maintain, man, because you know, we can't talk about everything in one episode. Then we have nothing left to talk about. But yeah.
I swear to you, I'm literally, I'll tell you how it was. I'm on the GLF page and you're talking about it, and I'm like scrolling down and I'm like, well, that looks good.
Yeah.
That looks like it would fit in nicely.
It does. Well, good job out of you, Matt.
So that compact jig, are you throwing that on? Are you going to go down to 12, 14 pound test on that? Or I know you said you're throwing it on a big stick. Are you still going to go 18, 20 pound test on it?
No,
because that's going to slow the fall too.
Yeah, no, I'll throw it on 15. On my baitcaster, I throw it on 15. On my spinning rods, I go 10 and 12. 10, 12 to, back to braid.
Yeah. Let's say you've got open water, like that 45 to 50 degree water range that a lot of guys are going to be fishing in on a non-grass lake without much flow in it, like a Grand Table Rock, any of those things. Yeah, are you going to start, if there's a jig bite in that, are you going to start looking at structure, or are you going to start looking at cover? If you want to go out and catch fish on a jig, are you going to be pitching a jig around docks, in brush piles, in that cold water, or are you going to be out on points, on secondary points, kind of in those areas adjacent to where they're going to start to move back, start to spawn, and you're dragging something slowly on the bottom? Is it a fair question?
It's a super good question, because I'm going to use my systematic approach, and I'm going to start out and work my way in. And so when I start out, I'm going to be on the structural stuff. As I get closer, I'm going to gravitate towards what I can see pitching and flipping. Okay. That's just the approach I take. So when I'm out, I'm going to have, the football jig, the ball head on. And as I get to where I need to be, then I'm going to go back to more traditional flipping jigs. I did that on Grand when I was on Grand, and then the water was warming up so fast that the fish transitioned literally during practice. And the funny thing was I was doing fairly good on the jig in 8 to 12. And then as practice went on, the fish got closer and tighter to the bank. And then I had to go to the bank and fish. And the weirdest thing was I couldn't hardly get bit on the jig. I had to go to soft plastic. That was one of the weirdest transitions I've ever seen, because they were on the jig so good and they got right off of it. And I don't know if they just, because of their location to shallow, if they just started changing what their diet was. Mm-hmm. I don't understand it. I didn't understand the change, so you got to pay attention to that too. As the water starts to warm, you got to pay attention to that, that food preference change. A lot of times, when you're fishing a jig or something dragging on the bottom, that's not a reaction bite. That's a
feeding bite.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times why it goes donk.
Right. Exactly.
That's them crushing it because they want to kill it because they want it to be in their stomach.
Right. So when you're flipping and pitching, you get a more reactionary bite. That's when your guys are throwing, they're fishing cover and they're throwing 1/2 ounce to 3/4 ounce jigs, and it's going boom right through the cover. Well, as that thing rips through, they can get that reaction bite. If the bass are kind of in a negative or neutral mode, they get that reaction bite because it's blowing past the fish. Their predatory instinct kicks in and they got to eat it. But if the bass are feeding and something blows by them and they don't feel like exerting the energy and they're like, no, I'm just going to wait. And then you float one down there by them and then they freaking smoke it on the fall. So you got to pay attention how the bass is eating it, because that's a pattern as well, how they're taking that jig. But for the most part, I work my way from out to in.
Out to in.
This time of year, you have to work your way from out to in, because you don't know where they're going to be, especially if you haven't been on the lake in a while. Conversely, after the spawn, you work your way in to out. So you go shallow to deep, post-spawn, pre-spawn, you're going deep to shallow. And it's actually before pre-spawn. It's not true pre-spawn.
Okay, I'm going to say a statement, and I want to get your reaction to it. Regardless of what fishery you're on, I can't say regardless. I'm going to say 95% of fisheries across the country, 12 months out of the year, 365 days a year, you have a legitimate shot of having a good day on the water if you focus on main lake brush piles in 10 to 15 feet of water with a 1/2 ounce jig.
I would say the brush pile thing is spot on accurate. There's always going to be fish using them. And that depth range is probably money because it's always going to be above a thermocline. The jig in the brush is fantastic. But as we get to warmer weather, I'm going to have both going. I'm going to have jig and a soft plastic, because I have seen too many times where they ignore the jig, and I can't. You have to be ready for that.
So you've seen a time where you can flip a jig and not get a bite, but in the same areas you can flip a beaver, you can flip a creature bait, Texas rigged, and your cast to bite ratio goes through the roof.
Yes, but I've seen it the opposite too.
Okay.
I have seen where if you weren't throwing a jig, you weren't catching them. You'd catch little ones, you catch a lot of little ones, but you weren't catching the ones you needed. The jig to me is a big fish bait. I catch more big bass on a jig probably than anything.
And I think they still do with all the newfangled trends. You look at Tyler Williams. You look at a number of, like, even the young guys, like, they are still jig guys. This is a great question. This was brought up. I started earlier. Mike says, I am noticing a magic blue color theme in Frank's jig arsenal.
Yeah, I don't make my jig fishing difficult. I've got black and blue, some form of magic craw, and some form of green pumpkin, purple or blue. That's it. I don't have I have some tricky ones that I do have, but for the most part, that's my jig box. Because I haven't seen where if you're not throwing some form of green pumpkin or some form of black, that you can't catch them any lake you go to. And I used to carry so much. That's what I used to do. I go like that because I'd have so many different jig colors and so many different of this and so many different of that. And I'm like, this is crazy because I always go back to 3 colors. So why am I carrying all this crap? And so what I did was I took my 3 main colors, carry them, have them, and then I took 2 on the opposite sides of the spectrum. So I don't carry them. And here, I'm going to show you something. So the jigs in here with skirts on them are ones that I'm fishing most of the time. Well, all of the time, except for if I'm fishing. So the ones with skirts on them are on top. That's because those are fishing. But if I remove them, you'll see that they don't have skirts on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't carry my jig heads with skirts. I have a separate box with jig skirts.
I think we've done a show on building your jigs on the water, just like
Yes.
we've done a show on building the spinner baits on the water.
Correct. And so the reason for that is because I don't make it complicated. So I've got 15 of each color jig skirt in a Ziploc bag rolled up, and they're in a box this big, and it just says jig skirts on them. I do that with my spinnerbait skirts and my chatterbait skirts. And that's it. And then everything else doesn't have a skirt on it. Now, if I fish a jig for the day, it has a skirt on it. So I leave the skirt on it, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear that jig out. And then if I was tournament fishing, because I used to do this tournament fishing, if I was tournament fishing, that became my practice jig, and I cut the hook off of it because I've been using it. So I cut the hook off of it and then use it for practicing. And then in the tournament, I have a brand new jig, and then I put a brand new skirt on it, trim it up, brand new trailer. And during the tournament, what I'll do is I'll rig 3 of them. I'll have 1 tied on and 2 ready to go. So if I break one off, I could tie it on. If I lose a trailer, I'll just grab another trailer and put it on. But that's what I usually do, because I don't want to carry all my jigs with skirts on them. For one, if you have a tendency to gravitate towards many different skirt colors, now your box is full, and you might only have, half-ounce jigs, and you got 15 different colors. Every tray in the box is full, and then you don't have room for your 5/16 or your 3/4 or your whatevers. So I decided that I carry my jig heads empty by weight and by hook size. Because if you notice another thing here, because I have the ability, because I make them, I have 5/16 with 4/0 and 3/0. And I have, so this way I can take, and I can, if I want to make a compact jig on my own, I could take that 5/16 and have the 3/0 hook in it. I do the same thing with my 7/16. I'll use 3/0, 4/0, 2/0, so I can have a super compact or super bulky jig if I want to. That's the main trick that I feel with jig fishing is, no matter what time of year you're fishing a jig, profile. There are times when they want a gargantuan jig, and there are times when they want something miniature. And so that's what I play with mostly, is what's that profile going to look like. Fall rate is critical when you're flipping and pitching grass or wood. The fall rate's critical. Do they want it on the bottom, or do they want it as it's falling through the cover?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is way easier to dial in now with forward-facing sonar, because if you're plummeting it past a suspended fish that is going down to the bottom to eat it, if you're catching a fish that you thought was suspended but was on the bottom and is coming up to eat it, and whether you're catching a fish that was on the bottom that the jig got down to the bottom and then he maneuvered around and ate it.
Yeah,
that's why I would say, since forward-facing sonar has come out, the heavier jigs have become more of a player, because you can use it to get down to the fish quicker, that you see, put it in front of the fish and see how the fish is reacting to it.
Right.
And then based on their reaction, that's when the lighter jigs come into play. If you're getting them to react and not bite, right, you can then switch it up. But if you look at the guys who are doing this, and there's a lot of guys who are doing this, it's a half-ounce and heavier the majority of the time, to get that bait in front of the bass and see how it reacts to it.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I determine, a lot of times when I'm shallow jig fishing, and when I say shallow, we're going to say from the bank out to 6 or 7, 8 feet. That's what I consider shallow. Mm-hmm. I'm leaning heavy on a 5/16 there, because a lot of the times I'm not scoping them. I'm fishing by feel and fishing by sight.
And that's slow enough that you're not plummeting, but heavy enough to where you're still able to maintain contact with the bottom.
Correct.
contact with the cover, feel what the jig's doing, and not feel like it's floating in no man's land.
Right. So here, I'll tell you a story. So I was fishing on this one lake and I flipped a jig up against the bank and I snagged it in between two rocks that were on shore. And I was shaking it to try to get it out. It wouldn't come out. So I bow and arrowed it. Boom, boom. It backed out and I popped it in the water. And as soon as it popped in the water, there was a boil and I caught the fish.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, holy crap, that fish literally was probably just sitting there facing the rocks. So the next flip I made, I threw it on the bank and I popped the jig in the water, but I swam it like a swim jig. I got 2 feet off the bank and caught another one. That's the beauty of the 5/16 because I could swim it, I could fish it traditionally, et cetera, et cetera. So it gave me more versatility. On the very same lake, I had fish going also. They were staging to come up and they were in that 8 to 10 foot range. And then I went to the ball headed jig. And that the funny thing about that was they wanted it rooting in the rocks. It had to be rooting in the rocks. They didn't eat it on the way down. They ate it when I was dragging it and getting all hung up in the rocks and shaking it free. That's how they were eating it. So I had 2 different jigs going, 2 different jig patterns going on the same lake on the same day. That's because it was springtime. So I had fish that were up shallow and fish that were coming up shallow. And so, you got to just pay attention to those things. I love Hackney because Hackney is a jig fishing machine. And he has a lot of
top 5 in the world.
Yeah, he has a lot of
top 3.
I 100% agree. I would hate to be on a jig bite against him.
Who else is it? Hackney, Denny Brower, and Andy Morgan?
Probably. I would even throw Christie in there.
Jason Christie, yeah. I would just straight jig though. We're not talking like just any like straight
jig bite.
I would have to go Hackney, Brower, Andy Morgan. Top 3.
Yeah, top 3. Top 3, I would say. If you're going to go down 4 or 5, you got to throw Christie in the mix.
Yeah, 100%.
But top 3, and because Hackney has his own system, and his system for him, the way he fishes it, works so good. He does a lot of braid flipping with his jig. I don't like fishing a jig on braided line. It's just a personal preference that I have. And probably the reason being, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here because I don't know for sure, but when I see Hackney at the Classic this year, I'm gonna ask him. I have a tendency to throw the lightest jig possible. So on a slack line with braid, if you're direct braid, you won't feel the bite if it's slack. But if you go to a heavier jig with the braid, you can have the jig fall on a not tight line, but a semi-tight line. Then you could feel the bite. The reason I got away from braid, now this is braid when I'm flipping, wood cover and stuff. The reason I got away from it was because some of the lakes, the wood's already getting rotten, it's old, and the braid cuts into the wood. And I've had fish that when they bit it, I got a friction lock around the wood I was fishing. And when I leaned into them, the line cut into the wood.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that because that's risk. That's risk of a lost fish. Where I found with the fluorocarbon, it didn't cut the wood as much. And I can feel the bite on a drop on a slack line. The bite transmits on fluorocarbon and monofilament. I don't fish with monofilament for jigs, but the bite translates. Where braid, if you got a wind bow in the line or any slack in it, you don't feel it until the fish moves the bait.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't like that.
Hear me out on this. One of the reasons, aside from knowing where they live and understanding the nuances, when it comes to flipping a jig early in the year, late in the year, whatever, that Greg Hackney is so good is because he finds the fish with the jig. He doesn't let the fish find the jig.
100,000 times correct. See, I didn't say 100%.
I'm thinking just off the top of my head. Cayuga deep grass, Texoma flooded bushes, Grand flooded willows, Red River jungle of stumps. Like you can go through it. He uses that jig to put it on the fish. He's not casting out hoping that a fish finds his bait.
Yes, exactly. Hackney's as old school as it gets. I love him for it. And he is so deadly with a jig. He's like, probably if I had to fish against anybody and it was a jig bite, I would hate.
If you're good with a jig and you tournament fish, true or false, you always have a shot to win when you launch your boat.
I believe that. The bass you catch on a jig is so much better than your percentages. It's like a buzzbait bite. A buzzbait's a big fish bait. Now, if you're around little ones, you're catching little ones. But for the most part, a buzzbait's a big fish bait. A jig is a big fish bait.
Also always seem like the guys who are like the jig guys always just come across as like badasses. Like you just don't see like a dork who's really good at throwing a jig. It's always like the guys who you're like not getting in front of him, not getting in his way.
Yeah, it's like the hockey player with no front.
Yeah, they're the fourth line hockey players.
Yeah, exactly. It's the hockey player with missing front teeth.
Yeah.
You know, he's not afraid of punishment.
Yeah. Like there's very few dorks who have made a career on jigs. It's always the badass.
I know, straight up, dude. That's so funny. That's so good. But yeah, I mean, you know, I try to keep it simple. I really try to keep fishing simple. I think simple is better. The problem is that with my OCD, nothing is simple, but I try.
You can keep it simple with attention to detail.
Yeah, you have to have detail. Like I could tell you where the fish hit the jig when I'm fishing it. I know exactly. Did he hit it? I know exactly. And then I can make my adjustments from there. I learned more about jig fishing, believe it or not. I learned more about jig fishing punching mats with soft plastics. Because it put a lot of the stuff about jig fishing in perspective. For example, when you punch a mat, did the fish hit it the minute the bait came through the mat? Did it hit it on the way down, or did you have to let the thing hit the bottom, lift it up, and hit the bottom, lift it up, and hit the bottom? Because here's the deal. If the bass is feeding underneath the mat and he's suspended and he's feeding at the crayfish and the minnows that are eating the stuff up underneath the canopy of the mat, he hits it the minute the jig breaks through or the soft plastic breaks through. If he's suspended in the grass stalks, he hits it on the way down. And if he's on the bottom or they're buried on the bottom and you bang it on the bottom a couple times, then get the bite, you're calling them from somewhere else to come and get it. And so that's when I realized that this is the same damn thing jig fishing. It's exactly the same. And I do fish like I took second on Champlain on a jig. And basically I was fishing grass with it and caught both smallmouth and largemouth. We went into that show already, but caught them both on it. And there I was throwing a 1/2 ounce jig because I found that jig had to be in the base of the grass to get the bite. So I had to go to the 1/2 ounce because the lighter jigs wouldn't get through that, wouldn't get down there. They'd swim away. You know, the jig would swim and I can feather it over the grass, but I wasn't getting where the bites were. And the bites were where the stalks of the grass met. So I needed a jig to get into that and down to it. And so that was the reason for it. So you do have to pay attention to what you're fishing and how you're fishing it and how your bites are coming. That's what makes you a good jig fisherman or not. And you have to have confidence in it. I have a friend of mine that can't stand to throw a jig. He won't throw it.
I bet he's a dork.
No, he's not. He's not. But he could be. He's not. But he can't stand to throw it. And he misses out on a lot of big fish opportunities.
Couple things going on right now in the world of fishing as we wrap up this show. Tackle Warehouse Pro Circus on Santee Cooper, most likely will take over 30 pounds a day to win that. However, it's only going to be 2 days because today was canceled because of wind. So it was funny last night we were talking about some shenanigans on set pickles on Santee Cooper that we got in, and they canceled the first day of that. Also over on the National Professional Fishing League, the No Scope Derby on, I think they're on Smith. Yeah, Lewis Smith. That's going on for all the marbles. Kyle Welcher's in the lead there. Bill Lowe and my boy Upshaw, 9 pounds. He's in fourth there. So they have live cameras over there, so you can go watch the MPFL.
Outstanding.
And then next week, that color drops on Thursday morning. If you're inclined to purchase some jigs, don't forget to use capital BTL25. You have 15% off all regularly priced items at
use the
LureNet.
Use the code, please.
LureNet. I always say LureNet, but it's LureNet.
Do you say holler instead of hollow?
Oh yeah, Tommy Biffle. It's hard to. Tommy Biffle would have to be in the.
Yeah, he's got to be in the. He's got.
Denny.
I'd go.
Hackney,
Denny,
Tommy,
Biffle.
Yeah, Hackney, Denny, Tommy Biffle. Am I giving too much jig credit to Andy Morgan? I feel like he's.
I don't know him enough to know. You know what I mean? I don't know him enough to know, but I would say from some of the tournaments I saw, I would say you're not off base.
I know like he's talking about like Mansour here and stuff like that's like a specific like swim jig thing. Like there's guys who are just like, if there's a jig bite, they're on it, whether it's deep, whether it's shallow, whether it's heavy, whether it's a finesse thing. I mean, that are going right now. Yeah, a Christie would be, because I mean, you talk about the Ozarks and the ball head and the flipping head and the grass stuff and everything. I put right there Andy Morgan and Jason Christie.
Yeah,
probably as a tie to round out the top 5 that are going right now.
Yeah, that are fishing now. Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
I don't know. I might do BTL about that. We have to do the top 10 live scopers show again too that we did last year that got a lot of
do you think it's changing?
Oh yeah, from last year I think the top, so our list of top 10 live scopers in the world that fish a professional trail, so we include the Elite Series, the Opens, the
MPF,
BPT.
No. You can't do the MPFL.
No, the BPT and the Invitationals or the Pro Circuit. And out of that, the top 10 live scopers, I would venture to say that between last year's list and this year's list that we're going to do here shortly, there's going to be a 50% turnover.
Oh, damn. All right. That's good. There's some guys that are showing up.
Like in a big way.
Yeah, there's some guys that are showing up. I know you're so busy that we can't stay on too much longer, but
no, I'm good. We're doing a live show, 1:00. Austin Cranford's going to be in studio. We're going to talk about his first 2 Elite Series stops of the year, and he's going to break it down. 11 shows this week between the videos and what we've done live. So
yeah, Cranford's a good dude.
Yeah. Anyway,
but yeah, I like what they're doing. I like what Bass is doing, flipping the coin, going at every other event, scope, no scope. I like how they're doing that because I want to see some conventional wisdom start to take place. I think it's going to help the lure industry a lot because we're going to start to see baits that kind of started flatlining a little bit. I think we're going to start to see baits coming back into play. I'm really excited for some of the summer events with no scope, so we could start to see some big build crankbaits starting to get the nod. Even though they got the nod, at Rayburn, this Rayburn tournament, guys were cranking them too. I'm excited to see that because I'm a diehard crankbait man, and I like to see it start to make a little push again.
I think the crank will play a little bit in the classic coming up here in a couple weeks. I think we're also going to see some crazy scope from some of the younger guys who haven't exploited it on the Tennessee River. But if you're a fan of up close, hand-to-hand, close-quarter combat, the next two Bassmaster Elite Series stop are the Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway in Mississippi and the Arkansas River in mid-April out of Muskogee. So if you're looking for hook sets, two cranks, fish in the boat, those are going to be two derbs that you're probably going to want to pay attention to. And I would not be shocked if that Tom Bigby tournament, March 26th through 29th, wasn't won on a spinnerbait that would be very close to something, probably maybe a little smaller, but very close to something that you talked about 2 weeks ago on the show.
Yeah, and see, and I was thinking for that one, I was thinking square bills and spinnerbaits.
Yeah, there's going to be some real nasty, ugly looking compact spinnerbaits with orange and chartreuse and white in them that are going to be slung around on Sunday there on the Tom Bigby.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see. I still think a square bill's going to play there.
I mean, maybe one of these. I know this is a lure net show, but can I show the crankbait that I got?
Oh, yeah, you have.
I got to show it.
Yeah, dude, we talk about all kinds of lures on the show.
They did the smallmouth crush, and they did I think a semi-legal auction on YouTube. And
legal.
And I was sitting there drinking a couple cold beers a couple weeks ago, and he pulls out like like he had a handful. Epic Eric, if you know him, just Travis's, and then he is also on Bass After Dark, but he is guru of baits. And he pulls out a mint, never before seen water, Ed Chambers Hickey X in a gel coat pattern, brand new, in the box like that. And I got the thing for $55. Which is an investment in my opinion. Like I would love to throw it. I will never throw it, but it is a thing of beauty from the late Ed Chambers.
That's such a good bait. God, that's such a good bait.
Just a gorgeous little balsa bait.
Yeah, and the beauty part about the gel coat on that bait is it gives it a different type of buoyancy than most balsa baits.
I'll never know. I'll never find out.
Yeah, it'll be indestructible, but the problem is you could lose it on a mudfish, a pike. I would never put that in the water at this point.
Yeah, I'm putting it right there.
Yeah, I would never put that in the water.
That's where it goes. So, all right, I think it's time to cue some music. There it is.
Hey, Matt, before we go.
Did you just draw that?
No, I drew it a while ago.
Did I let the cat out of the bag?
No, maybe.
Thursday, March 5th, 8:30 a.m. Central Time. We'll be back. And then the following week is Bassmaster Classic Week. So no show on the 12th. We'll probably do a recorded show for that, but I'll already be in Knoxville for that.
Man alive. Dude, I forgot. This is like popping right up on us.
We're already 2 full months into 2026. Yeah, it's next week. Like, you need to get the oil change, check the tire pressure.
Yeah, it's time. It's time. And the funny thing is, we are finally losing our snow here.
But you still have 8 inches ice.
On the inland waters, yeah.
Well, there's signs of hope. You have no power plant lakes in that neck of the woods that just stay open year round. Like in Illinois, where I grew up, there's like 5 power plant lakes within 2.5 hours to where you can like go fish year round. Now it might be cold and frozen to get there, but like the water stays warm.
Yeah, dude, we have one, but you can't access it because you got to run through Lake Erie to get to it. So when it's frozen,
and it's public, you just can't get there.
You can't get there because you got to launch. You got to launch in a river, and the river freezes, and then you got to run the lake, and the lake freezes, and you can't get in.
I wonder if you could put like snowmobile tracks or something on a boat, like those duck boats up north that you can drive them and do it. I wonder if you could do like a John boat to where you could go across the ice But then when you got to the open water, boom, you're fishing, and then you still use a motor to propel yourself like a snowmobile across the ice to get to the water where you can fish. So literally, if there's open water, you can launch the boat on the ice and then drive to the open water.
Just take an airboat.
You could, you could do a fishing airboat style up there. I wonder, like, if you did come out with that, how many of those would sell? I bet you could sell 100 of those.
No.
You don't think there's 100 guys that know if they can get to open water, they'd be slamming 30-pound bags of smallmouth and largemouth, but they can't get there because of the ice, and they've got...
No, because the expense of getting something like that going, you could just hook your boat up and go south.
Yeah, fair.
You know what I mean? You don't have to travel too far to get away from it.
All right, same time, same place next week. Great show, Frank. Thanks for bringing the show and tell. Thanks for telling us some of your secrets. Sorry about the Helgramite deal.
No biggie.
We'll talk to everyone next week. See ya.
Bye.